Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for joining me for episode 4 of the RW podcast. And in today's episode, I have a special guest, Bullets for Bucks, who hunts, fishes. What other things do you do on your channel, Bullets for Bucks?
Mainly hunting films, optics reviews, and gun reviews. But we review hunting gear as well and do other random stuff.
And you mentioned optics. And this is a question I get all the time in my comment section. And I honestly say, sorry, I'm not the person you should be asking for that. And that is on scopes, hunting scopes, or whether it's ELR scopes, all types of scope. I just don't know enough. I don't have enough experience with them. And in today's episode, we are going to first talk about Vortex versus Leupold. Really, which one's the better one for you? And then we're also going to mention the best low budget scope, the best mid-range scope, and then one of the best high-end scopes. And Bullets for Bucks has a lot of experience with these types of scopes. So Bullets for Bucks, which is better, Vortex or Leupold?
Well, I can give you opinions and maybe some advice from what I've used, but I wouldn't say I'm a total authority in the market. But I have a lot of Vortex scopes. In fact, I have almost their entire line at this point, I think, from their mid-tier up at least, all the way from their Diamondback. I have two. I have a Sonora, which is like their lowest of the lowest. I have a Sonora and a Copperhead. And then I have everything all the way to a Razor HD Gen 3. So pretty much the complete line. And then on Leupold, I haven't had a lot of them. I've tested other people's and I've shot using them. So I have a little bit of knowledge there, but admittedly not as much.
Who on the high end, who has the best glass?
Oh man. I can't say for sure. I know the Razor Gen 3 that I have is way up there as far as glass quality. It seems significantly better than the Gen 2, the Razor Gen 2 that I have from the Vortex. Mm-hmm. I would say that's, in my opinion, and I know I'll get a lot of flack for this, but I would say that's like top tier or nearly top tier glass. Leupold has top tier glass though too, I would say. So like, or nearly. I mean, Swaro and some other companies are probably still going to edge them out just a little bit, like or things like that. But they're up there. I haven't looked through the highest quality Leupold latest optic. I don't think so. I don't know. I would say that they're going to probably be really close, and Leupold might beat them out, but I think they'd probably be really close with that Gen 3 coming out. That's really got some good glass in it. Both top tiers are supposedly sourced glass from Japan. Leupold says that they're assembled in the United States, they're designed in the United States, I believe in Oregon, if I'm correct. But then they say their components can be sourced from Europe, whatever that means. And there's a lot of people that say the lower end sourced from China, just like Vortex's lower end is certainly sourced from China and even probably assembled in China. And then the higher end, supposedly is sourced from Japan. And I know for certain it is assembled or almost for certain assembled and sourced from Japan with Vortex. So probably really close on top tier as far as the top tier goes. Leupold might edge it out though. I don't know. They have a pretty good reputation with their glass. Yes. But I would say that they both make good glass on their top tier scopes.
Okay, so one question for you. Low end Vortex versus Leupold. Which one would you get for the low end scope?
So my top 3 recommendations for a low end scope would probably be a Leupold VX Freedom, a Vortex
Diamondback.
Diamondback, but not the regular Diamondback. And I think the tactical might edge that out and be too expensive. I don't like the regular Diamondback HDs. The Diamondback tactical line, I do like. The eye relief is better on the tactical line, and there's some features. So like that one's probably on the more expensive end, is low end though, but like for really cheap scope, for really budget level scope, I mean, I would probably say go VX Freedom, an Athlon scope, but I can't remember the model. Those are more geared. Most of their cheaper scopes, I think, are more geared for like tactical. Like the Athlon Argos BTR is a really good long range affordable scope. And if you're looking for something really dirt cheap, you could turn towards maybe like the Sig Buckmaster, I think is it. But that one's really, I would say, try to always get something more expensive if you could.
Okay.
But if you had like $100 budget, look for that one maybe. If you had a $200 budget, maybe the VX Freedom. I think that comes in at what, $200-300?
I think it's 300.
300. And then if you wanted a long range scope, something more tactical, the Athlon Argos BTR. I know there's some other models out there. And if you did want to go Vortex, because I mean, they do have a good warranty. Leupold does now as well, but I would probably go towards the not the Copperhead. That one's extremely cheap. If you only had $100 budget or so, that might not be a bad option either. But, and by the way, the Sonora and the Copperhead are exactly the same scope.
Oh, okay.
One was exactly. So if you see a Vortex Copperhead or Sonora, which is like their lowest of the lowest of the lowest, I have one so far, it's held 0. But if you were, and you were like, well, what's the difference? There is no difference. The name is the only difference. I got that straight from Vortex themselves. There's so many scopes out there. It's insane.
Right.
And the market's so competitive that they're constantly evolving and getting better and better at the price point. And also another thing is a lot of these scopes are really being sourced or made in the same places, like the same factories and stuff. So
that's good to know.
Yeah.
Okay. What would be your ideal, maybe if you have a couple or just one, what would be the best mid-range scope? So maybe starting at $500 and above, or $500 to $1,000. What's your go-to middle range scope?
Well, right. I'll just throw out a couple that I guess that I think are decent, and the prices I'm sure vary right now. But the Vortex Diamondback Tactical is a really solid scope. In my opinion, it's a great scope if you want to scope that you could use both for hunting out west at longer ranges, but also use recreationally for long range shooting. I think that's a great starting scope. And the only really big downside to that is it doesn't have a 0 stop. But I do think it's a solid scope. I've used one for years. I've used one successfully hunting for years, and I beat it up hard and it's held 0 and tracked. And then as far as other scopes, let's see here in that price range, and we'll think more towards hunting. I would go the Leupold VX5 HD, or the 6 is, well, that one's, you're looking at, that one's just over 1,000. We just like, it's probably the VX3 HD would be solid. I don't have as much experience with it. I think the feature set on that's, from what I understand, it's probably better. If you could afford the 5 HD, that's a good one. I mean, it's really about what you're going to use it for. If you're just using it for hunting at ranges 300 yards or in, then you can use a capped turret scope with lower variable power or even fixed power. And then if you're hunting Western, you can go to the variable power open tactical turret so you can dial. So really is going to depend. You got to ask yourself, what am I going to use this for? And what ranges am I going to use this to, or what's the max range I'm going to use it for when purchasing a scope?
And lastly, let's just talk high-end scopes, high range. What would your pick be? Is it the Razor Gen 3?
No, well, I mean, the glass on that's great. Now, for hunting, definitely not. Okay, for competition, ELR, PRS are just really, recreational long range, exclusively using it for recreational long range. It's a great scope, but it's an army tank. It's huge. It's heavy. It's not as heavy as you'd think, though, because I want to say it might even be lighter than the Gen 2. That's less power, because the Gen 3 6 to 36 it's massive scope. For hunting, if we narrow things down, because if we go to tactical style scopes, I mean, this could go to, I have a Steiner T5XI, and that's actually designed kind of for crossover between hunting and tactical. And the turret design on that's amazing, because it has windows on the turret, and it has numeric values that go up as you dial in the window. So you never have to count your MOA. Like, you don't have to count your mil or your MOA, how many have you gone, or you don't have to look at like a physical etched in a numeric value and try to remember where you're at. It literally like has a window where it just rolls over and tells you what you're on. So it's like the most dummy proof turret in the world. Other than, I mean, I love the turrets on the Steiner T5XI. So that's like something that really sets that scope apart, in my opinion. But let's narrow it down to more to hunting. So like for hunting perspective, the Vortex LHT, I believe it, the Vortex LHT line, the 3 to 15 by, I think it's 42 or 44, and the 4.5 to 22 by 50. I have both of those scopes. And from a Western hunting perspective, or from a hunter who wants to be able to use it to shoot long range at the range when they're not out hunting, I don't think that scope can really be beat. The VX5 HD and VX6 HD probably come pretty close, but they still don't have quite the feature set at the weight.
So what do you mean?
So I don't want to say something that's not accurate, but I believe they're slightly lighter, the Vortexes are, for what they offer, like the feature set and the magnification. And then also, I don't think you might have to look this up quickly. I don't think there's the VH6 or VX5 comes in quite the power, like the 4.5 to 22 by 50. But basically, and I know I have another stream I did where we actually did go into like all the stats and compared them. But look, both scopes are going to be good. If I was saying between $1,000 and like 1,800 or somewhere around there, I think is where they're priced at. And I was going to say, get the absolute best Western hunting scope. I would say out of three, I would probably say the VH5 HD, the VX6 HD, and the Vortex LHT, or 3 to 15 or 4.5 to 22. Like they're really good. All of those are good. I think like the Vortex, I want to say, comes in a little bit more streamlined, a little bit more purpose driven for the hunter. And I think it weighs a little bit less. And the glass, in my opinion, is better on that particular, those ones when you put them up against each other, especially, well, the Vortex 4.5 to 22 anyway. I think the glass is slightly better. I haven't looked through like the 3 to 15 and compared it, but like they designed the LHT to be a light hunting tactical scope. And so the magnification ring is really small. It's not real bulky. It doesn't get in the way, which is, there's pros and cons to that. There is no fast focus eyepiece. It's a locking ring. So you set your focus, your eyepiece, which that's all the shed weight and basically slim it down. And then the turrets on it are pretty decent. They're quieter than a Vortex or scope that's made for like tactical shooting or competition. They're actually quieter. They kind of dulled them down to be quieter in a way. But there's just a lot of things about that scope. It has push button illumination. And on the 4.5, it has a Christmas tree style reticle and illuminates the entire reticle. On the 315, I think it's just more like a fire dot. It's not quite the same. But the push button illumination, they both have good illumination, though. I think VX5 HD is just a fire dot, though. I don't believe you have the option for a Christmas tree style reticle that's illuminated. But both of those would be right up there with what I would recommend, as far as between $1,000 and $2,000 for a Western hunter to put on their rifle.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for coming on. Bullets for
Yeah.
Bucks. Thank you for giving us your experiences with the scopes, and appreciate it. Guys, if you're not subscribed to Bullets for Bucks, please go to his channel. He has a lot of great content, and we'll see you next time, guys.
Thank you.